welcome. I'm John and welcome to another Shopkeep Arty class where we host amazing artists from around the world to help you improve your art. And today we're hosting a new artist on our channel, Annette Morris from France, southern France. In fact, it's a place called, let me get this right, Languedoc, and Annette describes it as the Wild West of France, so can't wait to find out a little bit more about that. Annette's going to be doing a lovely little watercolour of a scene near to where she lives, so it'll be interesting to find out a little bit more about the town and that environment, and it's a prelude to her longer workshop event which is happening soon, and we'll talk about that in the middle of the class. So, without further ado, let's jump on a plane and go and visit her now. So, as we journey down to southern France and to say hello to Annette, if you want to find out more about the class information, materials, recommended reference pictures, you can find that on our video library under class info. And as we zoom down, I think I can see Annette there. Yeah, she's waving out of the window. Let's go and say hello. Hi, Annette. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, John. Thank you very much for having me today, visiting.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. It's lovely. Some of our patrons have been on some of your workshops before, so spoke very highly of you, very energetic. And yeah, we were talking about your move to France, a big step for anybody to move countries. And you moved there about 15 years ago or so.
That's right. Yes, a lifelong dream, really, to see what this place was like, because I'd only ever seen it on summer holidays and I wanted to experience it all year round, and the rest is history.
and no regrets, I'm assuming.
No. I mean, there are things about home, which is the UK. Yeah. I do obviously think very fondly of, but I can still visit, so it's not that far away, is it really?
No, exactly. And you've got the mountains, you've got the coastline, you've got everything on your doorstep, which is fantastic, and probably some really great inspirational scenes for your plein air painting.
Yes, that's true. We're really spoilt here because we have it's quite an agricultural region, lots of vineyards, lots of landscapes, big skies, but we've also got beautiful cities, great architecture. So I'm an urban sketcher, so I spend a lot of time drawing and painting outside, so I'm spoilt for choice when it comes to subjects.
Yeah, I bet. Well, can't wait to get started. Before we do, just a quick summary of how today's short class is going to work. So first of all, Annette will talk about the subject and the sketch that she's already pre-sketched out, which you should have been informed about on yesterday's email. So if you do want to paint along, it's probably worthwhile using the reference painting and just sketching that out beforehand. Obviously, in the full workshop event, Annette will take you through everything from start to finish, step by step, and we'll talk about that in the middle. So in the middle, we'll take a pause. We'll not only talk about the workshop, but we'll also take a look at 2 or 3 of Annette's previous works of art for a little bit of further inspiration. And then finally, we'll hopefully finish off this painting. It depends on whether we're pressed for time or not, but I'm sure we will. And then we'll round up and get your feedback and comments. So let's get back to Annette.
Okay, right. Well, this is a printout of the sketch that I sent for the website. So if you've received that, that's a kind of guideline for the layout, and it's, as you can see, pretty loose pencil sketch. So I've drawn it again, and I always draw freehand, so it's more or less the same. I've also put a little pencil border around my sketch because I think that's quite helpful to kind of give you a frame. Some people use masking tape. I'm working in a sketchbook and I don't feel that I need to have masking tape. I just like the effect of a border, and it also gives me a sense of where to start and stop on the page. I've got a piece of old cardboard here from the back of a sketchbook, and I'm just going to put that under here because although my paper is 300 GSM, it is watercolor paper, I do think it's kind of helpful to just give it a little bit more of a solid surface. If you are joining me today, you might have sketched with me before, or you might not. either way, I'm so glad you're here. Please do post some questions in the comments as we get going, so I know that you're there. And if there's anything that you would like to know or you're finding particularly useful today, we're going to be doing these glorious wisteria on this building, which is in a village up the road. Now, this is a funny colour to work with, and you may all have different colours in your palette to me. You can also buy a tube of paint by Daniel Smith called Wisteria. And I haven't put this on the list simply because it isn't quite the right colour. It's more pink than purple. Daniel Smith's lavender is actually far better. That's the lavender and that's the wisteria. But I'm not going to use either of those, but I just thought that was a
Who makes these colours up? Who makes these colours up? If you're going to call it wisteria, you'd have thought.
you can get, I mean, you do see wisteria with this pinky tone, but round here, it's not that colour. It's more lavender colour. So there you go. So what I'm going to be using is I'm going to be using a mix of two of the colours in my palette, which is this opera rose colour, which is very pretty pink. And I'll mix that up with some of this cobalt turquoise light, and this will give me a pretty mauve. And the cobalt turquoise actually does have some kind of white in it, so it's not completely transparent. But I'm not using masking fluid for this. This is just a sketch, and this is really all about the wisteria. So that's my starting point. So I'm going to put a wash of this. Basically, this is how I'm going to get started with this, because if I put this kind of purpley wash on first, then I know I've got the wisteria covered and I won't forget about it and put too many other colours on the page. So I'm just using a brush. This is a size 8 on an A4 piece of paper.
Now, sometimes watercolour artists have their page inclined a little bit. Do you have it on a slope or is it flat?
Not today, not at the moment. Sometimes I lift it up to move it around. I'm not doing any kind of big washes today. Okay. So the gravity thing isn't quite as relevant. So this is really just marking out where these beautiful flowers are going to be, groups of flowers. And of course, our colour will dry a little bit paler on the page anyway, because it's watercolour. But this is really to make sure that I've got these covered. And I take a bit of clean water in places just to soften off the edges so they don't look too stripy. But hopefully you're getting the gist. That there'll be some white spaces in between, perhaps, because there's going to be leaves and whatnot underneath anyway. Right. So I hope we're going to have enough time for this, John. We'll do our best.
I have faith in you, Annette.
Right. So whilst that's settling into the paper, I'm going to grab hold of some watercolour pencils. I'm a big fan of these for sketching because they're so portable, they're so quick to use that they can just add a little bit more texture and give you some useful guidelines in a drawing. The ones I've got here, I've just got 3 colours today, and I'm going to use these on top of the drawing that I've done to highlight some of the shapes, not all of them, but some of the shapes in this lovely stone wall, because I'm not going to draw every brick. I haven't got time for all that. So, and when you're sketching outside, you really do often have to seize the moment and work as fast as you can. And I'm just using this orange pencil because there's quite a lot of warmth in this wall. So I want to make sure I capture that with the odd brick here and there.
That's quite a good way of adding detail, but still in that watercolor thing that you can then blend in, rather than trying to get a, I don't know, a fine liner brush or something to do it.
Yeah, well, I as I say, it's, for me, it's a practical solution to, you know, when I'm out and about, and they're easy to carry. They're not very expensive, and there's a bit of orange in this light here as well. Let me put some orange in there, and I might even put some color on this pot that's down here, just for time. And there's orange on the roof, and these are really just helpful markers for me, because of course once the water or watercolor hits these pencils, it's going to do fun things. The next color I've got is this lovely warm magenta, and we've got quite a lot of that here because this particular village is quite an interesting place. Actually, it's a tiny village, and the doors and a lot of the properties and the windows and stuff have all been painted in the colors of wine. So there's lots of purple and pink and things like that. So this color works really well. And all I'm doing here is using this pencil to put some accents in these wooden shutters in the door, because this can help me shortcut for a bit of texture. So there's not a lot at this stage.
Now, Angela said, "Are the pencils water soluble?" And of course, because they're watercolor pencils. So I think they just use the watercolor pigment, don't they? Within the, so it's not a carbon lead. It is
no. So I've got some of this magenta, and the lines will kind of stay there in places, but also depending on how hard you push with the pencil, some of them will just kind of blend into the page. So you know, when you get these stones in the wall, because it's a sunny day, you've got this shadow that's underneath the stones. So I'm just picking out a few places where we see that.
And there's some just on the theme of watercolor pencils, there's some funky things that you can do with them as well, if they're in part of your kit bag, so to speak. We hosted Tim Fisher. I don't know whether people have heard of him, a watercolor artist, quite a few years ago now, where he did a special one on watercolor pencils, and he had his razor blade out, actually shaving the watercolor lead into a powder that you can then use. So there's lots of different ways. I think people may have this in their art box but never really bring them out, and I think it's nice to use them in conjunction with your brushes, like we're seeing today. Yeah. I mean, they're just a few marks, look, but it's already it's telling a story. It's giving us part of the story of this building. So now I really need to get the wall in, but I've also got lots of this greenery here, and it's almost the same color. So first off, I'm going to put some color on the wall, and I'm going to use a couple of colors actually. This will be a mix of ochre, and I tend to use my palette just to build the puddles of paint, and then do a lot of the mixing. A lot of the mixing will happen on the page. This is transparent orange, which is a beautiful color. I really like this color. So that's going to be in there. And a little bit of, this is alizarin crimson. So the very warm colors here.
And I love watercolour because it does such unpredictable things. And that's part of the joy of it. But you'll see when it goes onto the page and it touches these marks I've made, it will create quite a soft pattern around these stones. And I'll put some other colours in here as well. And I love the fact that watercolour kind of dances on the page a bit, does its own thing, bit of a cha-cha-cha. And I'm leaving some of these white spaces that I've made with my pencil. We have to be careful here because I've got my wisteria coming in. So don't ever be afraid of leaving white space when you're sketching, because you really want that paper to breathe.
Louise wondered whether you could repeat the last colours that you'd.
Of course, yes. This is yellow ochre, which is a very good staple in a palette for things like stonework, especially in this part of the world. Transparent orange, which is just a personal favourite, but you could use any kind of orange, and alizarin crimson. So it's just creating patterns on the paper that will tell us it's stone without us having to draw every brick.
Now, when you're painting that wash of the brickwork, how do you decide where you're wanting to leave the whites?
It's more just recognizing that I don't want to fill in everything. There's not a particular plan as such of where the color needs to be left. I'm just leaving random spaces. So I've drawn the shapes with my pencil. Yeah. So that's sort of given me a guide. And I don't know if you noticed, but even the little shapes I drew were just in little clusters.
Mm.
And the paint is fairly translucent. You can see, they always have a piece of scrap paper next to me. You can see it's pretty translucent. You can really see the page through it, because the beautiful thing about watercolor is that you can layer it, and that layering is kind of what gives it that, I think, magic.
And I like the way when you touched the watercolor pencil on one of those bricks just then, the bleed almost gives a natural intensity of a shadow, doesn't it, of the brickwork?
Yeah, it does a lot of the work kind of for you. So here, down here, we've got lots of things happening down here because there's stonework, but there's also going to be some foliage up there. So I'm just dragging that down there. But it's a lot of sunshine here, so I'm going quite gently with the colour. But this is just loose washes of colour to kind of at least give us a bit of background to the wall for now. We can always add a bit more, because we know there's going to be some greenery here, greenery there. And I put quite a lot of this pencil in here, so that's going to get quite dark there. Look. Oops. So that's our first kind of layer of that. I've got this building over here, which is far less important. So I will get a very light wash of ochre for that. Just so we know it's there. what it is. And if I touch that orange line there, that will just give me the soft line of the roof. Magic.
Great. Now, would now be an appropriate time to stop to let that dry, or for the halfway break, or would you like to continue and do a little bit more?
I think we can do a little bit more before.
Okay.
I mean, I've got a hairdryer here.
Okay.
People, may not. I'll just give it a quick whip.
No problem.
So that's more or less dry now. And one colour I do want to get in before the break is this greenery here. And it's actually a very similar colour to what's on that building as well. And the colour I'm going to start with for that is going to be this transparent yellow, which is not quite as vivid as my lemon yellow there. But this kind of golden colour is really, really nice for this greenery because it will kind of glow out of the page. So this is going to have to go around our wisteria. Lots of different marks for this. In between, around, behind. You can see how bright it is. But the thing that needs to happen now is to kind of join the shapes together. So I'm going to use 2 extra colours here, which will be some sap green and also some ochre, because when we look at the wall and the foliage, they're all kind of connecting together. So for example, here I'm going to put a bit more ochre next to that yellow and then just join them together. I don't want to do a kind of too much wet in wet with this. I know you're familiar probably with that, but if I do too much wet in wet, I'll just end up with a blob. So I need to try and keep them controlled in how they connect. I've got a square brush here, which has got clean water on it. So I might just blend those colours into the page using my square ended brush. I've got spaces to fill. Clock is ticking. How are we doing, John?
It's fine. We're 25 minutes in, so that's okay.
Okay, so you can see that the colours are starting to blend together, but not not so loosely as they did on the wall. We're giving it a bit more control here to make sure that we don't lose our wisteria bobbles. And behind here, we've just got a bit of wall still, so that's got to be in as well. Some more of this yellow. Bit more ochre up there.
Is that an Escoda travel brush that you're using there?
It is, yes. It's very, very nice brush.
Yeah, they're nice. I've got some of those, and they're quite good because you can just take the thing that you're holding off and turn it around and put the brush inside, and it just protects it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's really
just like that.
Really handy. Yeah, and they are. Yeah, it's just what we're doing today. You know, I'm working in a sketchbook. I know lots of people might be working on stretched paper, but I'm. You know, this is what I do. I sketch. And I do paintings as well, but the fun of urban sketching is going somewhere, being there in that place, learning about it. And also from an artist point of view, it's incredibly challenging because you've only got a kind of a limited time frame. You're exposed to the elements to capture something that's very 3D onto a 2D piece of paper. So it's not that straightforward, but it's so rewarding to do. Now this is Indian yellow, which is just a bit warmer, and I'm going to put some of this on this ivy over here to dull it down a bit. And whilst we're doing greens, I'm going to very quickly use this bright green, this lemon, and put some of that on this plant that's popping out under the wisteria here, this vine, because just using the different yellows will help differentiate the plants, so we know that they are a bit different. And it's just a much fresher green than the one that we had up top. So a bit of sap green on top here and there. And I think that would be a good moment if you want to make a pause there.
Perfect. Very good timing. That is bang on half an hour. I can tell you've done this before, Annette.
Not this quick. This is very quick.
No, that was brilliant. That was lovely. It's lovely to see how it all is coming together. And I hope, I don't know whether you're using watercolor pencils. Not everybody's got them, but if you were, I hope you're getting on really well. Looking forward to seeing your paintings at the end of this show as well. Right, now in this midway section, this is where I ask the professional artists that we're hosting to divulge some of their previous works of art for a little bit of inspiration, and we'll also talk about the upcoming workshop event as well. So first of all, Annette, what paintings have you decided to share with us?
Well, a lot of my paintings aren't in sketchbooks. So what I've got here is actually a bundle of sketchbooks to show you, which I just got one on the floor. Because I don't know how many people are sketchers that are watching today, but sketching is really storytelling, and so this one, for example, whoops, was done on the spot, sitting on a street corner in Nîmes. It's in a fold-out sketchbook. It's on a very long sketchbook.
Ah, right. Yeah. Yes.
And so it's just capturing a moment in time. This was a very cold day, I think, I remember, but people were sitting outside this cafe. This was done, sketched with some watercolor pencils, and then I added the color and some ink.
Lovely. I hope you weren't sat in the middle of the road there. Looks like
I was just on the edge of the road. I do remember where I was sitting. Yes, yes. We're talking, I chose these because we were talking about watercolor pencils earlier. So this was actually in Carcassonne.
Ah, okay.
And you can just about make out some of the pencil marks where it was actually sketched in the pencils and then a few dashes of color added. So it's not a painting as such, but it also just captures the essence of where we were, the style of the architecture, some of the colors that I imagined were there that weren't really there, like this pink. But it shows you that with this kind of sketching that's very quick and spontaneous, you can still capture the essence of where you are, and you know, especially if you're traveling or something like that, without taking an easel and the whole caboodle to do a painting. And you can then use these sketches to make a painting later on, but you've got your interpretation of it. This one was done on a day out with our Urban Sketchers group. It's in another local village, very spontaneous, again using coloured pencils with actually some coloured ink on this one. And I actually use this as a base for a painting that's now a limited edition print. So having it in a sketchbook format for me is very appealing, because all of these books are memories and they're my journey as an artist as well as a traveller. Yes,
yes.
What have we got in this one? This one, oh, again, this was sitting on the corner of the street in the village where I live. I was sitting there with my dad actually sketching this. And what was really funny about this was this shop is actually pink, and we call it Mrs. Pink. I don't know. But there's all these signs of don't do this, you know, don't do this. Yeah. So sketching is also about noticing things that you probably walk past every day, but don't really look at. So when you're sketching on the spot like this, you are literally noticing so much more than if you just took a photo, because it's so three-dimensional, you're in it. And again, using the layers of the watercolor to make the buildings kind of almost glow, which is, for me, one of the magic things.
And it provides real character to them as well. And you're almost storytelling, aren't you, as you said, with these paintings.
And that's really what urban sketching really is. It's a storytelling thing. And this was just a fun thing that we did, which little vineyard scene not far from here, really simplistically, but again, using the kind of qualities of watercolor and this real translucency that you get to kind of give light into a painting. Yeah. And I do sketch a lot of vineyards because we've got
quite a few around where you are. Yeah. Oh, so, no, that's fantastic. No, that's really good. Right.
I've got some more in this book, I think. But
I think it really gives a good reflection of the types of sketching and painting that you do, and the way that you capture those scenes. If you're enjoying what you're seeing today, by the way, and you're watching a recording of this webinar, we'd really appreciate a thumbs up, like, or whatever. It just gets to show the show to more people and inspires more people to give art a try. So really appreciate that. And if you want to let me know which of those paintings you really like, what stood out for you. That would be lovely, just so that I can pass that on to Annette as well. Now, Stefan Ahl said, loved the shadows on some of the ones that you showed there. Tricia had a question for you, said, can she say which coloured pencils you usually carry with you?
It does depend where I am and how much space I've got, but I almost always have orange, pink, pale blue, magenta and indigo.
Okay. So it's a small eclectic mix, but you can usually get away with creating most color mixes with those, because you can obviously mix the colors, can't you? If the
I mean, you can layer them together, as I've done in this wall here.
Yeah.
And the thing is with the colors that I choose, it's because I see those colors in most of the architecture that we have around here, particularly. I generally don't use browns very much at all. So I know a lot of people couldn't live without Payne's grey. I'm very happy to live without Payne's grey. I don't use it hardly ever. I prefer to mix colours, the brighter colours, to give myself the darker shades if I want to, like the shadows.
Yeah.
So I do have a dark brown and a dark black in my palette, but I very, very rarely use them.
Okay. Victoria said, Annette's sketching is very inspirational and colourful. Carl said, I'm looking at my box of watercolour pencils over in the corner and they're looking so willing for me to get to them. We'll take them out this afternoon. So I think you've given someone a bit of inspiration. Carl will be taking them out this afternoon, which is
excellent.
great.
Excellent.
Now we're going to talk about Annette's upcoming workshop. So the workshops are the proper event. This is more of a short class taster, however you want to describe it. But the workshop, we're actually going to be going from start to finish, blank sheet of paper, taking you through the sketch, how to do all that, and then obviously adding all the colour and detail as well. And Annette's chosen a reasonably complicated one to start with. It is, and we're talking about simplifying a scene and everything as well. And I can see the reference photo in front of her. So here we go. If you were presented with that and you were sat on the banks of that river, you'd be going, oh my goodness, where do I start? And I think that's probably the reason you've chosen this, Annette.
Yes, it is. It's a beautiful spot, but it's, from an artist point of view, it's very challenging because there's just such a lot going on in here. You've got stonework, you've got all this greenery, you've got rocks, all these houses, and then you've also got the river as well. So there's so many different elements to this, but when you're out and about sketching, you just have to get on with it and kind of break it down chunk by chunk to simplify it as much as possible. So the workshop is basically geared to that. And I'm working on a smallish scale here. This is an A4 book, but you can see that it can be done. It can fit in. And you're welcome to work larger. That's absolutely fine. But for practical reasons on this video, I'm working in the sketchbook. And you can see how it's all there, really.
Yeah, and I think you've captured the vitality and the colours and the vibrancy of that scene really well. And I think this could be used, the skills taught in this workshop could be used by all of us really whenever you go on holiday or somewhere, there's always these little lovely towns and you see it visually and you think, God, it'd be so nice to be able to capture this, but it can be quite daunting. So I think some of the skills that we go through step by step in this workshop will be invaluable for doing that. And it looks great in the book as well, the sketchbook. So now if you want to book, it's really easy. You need to just head over to our site and go to the events page, and I'll show you now how you can do it. You head over to shopkeeparty.com, and at the top, if you're on a mobile, it will look a little bit different, the menu, but you select the events page, you scroll down and you can see Annette's event just there, and then click on the event details, goes through to the page with the various things that we've been talking about and the reference photos and things like that. And you'll be sent those the day before as well. Click on book workshop and it goes through to Annette's shop, and it includes the video recording as well, and simply add it to cart and check out. And if you're not in the UK, although it is in pounds, after checkout, your card issuer will convert it to your local currency. In the future, if you want to watch the video, you simply come to our video tutorials library, which is on our website, select by artist, and Annette will be on there. She's not on there at the moment because this is our first show. And then you'll be able to just click watch and watch that however many times you want, and replay and fast forward, rewind, etc., etc. So it just makes it nice and easy. Right, I'm looking at the clock. That's been a good chunk of time. Now we're going to get back to the second half, and hopefully we'll be able to pull it all together and make it pop. Back with you, Annette.
Okay, right. Well, the colour that I'm going to dive into next is I've just noticed something actually, which I'm going to do first. I've just noticed that I've missed a bit of this ochre on this windowsill here. Oops. So that's going to go in. The shutters are going to be alizarin crimson, really, because it's the closest colour I've got to that woodwork. So that's going to go on for these, because that is very relevant to the place. You know, we're talking about it being painted in the colours of wine. So that's really something that has to be in to depict where we are. And so very much local colour, you know, we talk about local colour and imagined colour. And in a lot of my sketches, I use imagined colour as well, just because that's fun. And it makes sketches look, to me, more exciting. Because if you think about it, roads and buildings are generally grey. So it's quite nice to make them look a little bit more interesting. And so this local colour is kind of important to get in. There's a little bit of red in this as well, so I'm going to change that so it's not a flat colour. And you'll see where we've added our magenta marks. It will just bleed into the colour a little bit. And it's just a shortcut. It's just a shortcut to adding all of that texture with a paintbrush, like you say. So really quickly doing this here, really quickly. Bit of pink around that board. And I'm still using the same brush actually. But get some of this up here. Now I need to switch brush to something a wee bit smaller. And I will use my rigger brush. This is a size 2. I love rigger brushes because they're so versatile. Not everybody gets on with them because they're a bit unruly. They do have their own mind sometimes. But I need to get these window frames in. But they do hold a nice amount of paint. Some people call them liner brushes. And while I've got a small brush in my hand, I'll put some colour on this pot that's down below. I'll use burnt sienna with some transparent orange to make it terracotta-y colour. So that's that. And I've got to put something on the ground, and I'm going to go back to a bigger brush, much bigger, 12, pick up some of this crimson colour, even with a bit of opera rose, which we've got in the wisteria, and I'm going to wash this on that floor there. So we've got a bit of warmth. On the ground, and it's not just an empty space. This bench, slightly immaterial in the whole story, but we'll put it in anyway, because otherwise we'll be left with an empty space. Just a bit of ochre on that. And now I need to start adding some darks. I've got two ways to do this. I'm going to use some blues in the greens. So I'll take some indigo and put it in this sap green mix that I had. And this can pop into this plant that's creeping up here, underneath where the leaves would be. If you're keeping up with me, you're doing incredibly well.
We will see. We will see after the show.
We will. So these little tiny marks, I'm just softening off some of those so they don't look too zigzaggy. But the principle is you're letting some of that initial colour just pop through behind. So that's this climber that I think is some kind of, I don't know what it is actually, but anyway, it's not the wisteria that's growing. In fact, it's not that, I don't think. Different leaves. And then this needs to be darker. The wisteria needs to be darker, but that needs to be a different colour again. And I will use, go back to my transparent yellow. And I'll take some Prussian blue here, I think. Because it's a slightly different colour, and I will start adding in some colours for that too. Little dots and dashes will be enough to tell us what's going on. Mix the two together, and I'll put that over here on this. Now, hopefully, while all that's been going on, I can take my Indigo watercolour pencil and sharpen up some of these corners in here for these windows.
Have you ever done a plein air where you've got this ominous black grey cloud in the distance and it's approaching ever gradually towards you, and you know you're going to have to pack up soon?
Yes. I have lots of experience of sketching in all weathers. So I put this indigo in this window here, and this is just a very kind of another shortcut thing really, to put some dark colour in the windows, but it wouldn't be like evenly black or dark. You know, you can see that there's a wall in there, there's different things, but you can see when I touch the paint with my brush, that touch the pencil, it just blends more softly. But the pencil is very quick and it gives me more control. And it's very much about time, you know, creating a painting where you're in a quite a controlled environment is very different to when you're sketching. But that's part of the kind of fun of sketching, is testing your artistic abilities to see what you can do in the time that you have, and how many shortcuts you can find to get the result that you want, and what tools you need, because you can't carry everything. So you get this different depth in the windows just by using the pencil first. Very quickly there. I'm going to put some black.
Wendy says, such a pretty scene. Thank you so much for painting it. So
it's not finished yet, Wendy.
I know. And just to give you a time check, that grey ominous cloud will be reaching you in about 6 minutes.
Right. Okay. Well, as this is about wisteria, then we're going to go back to the wisteria very quickly. So I'm putting some.
Peter's wondered, is there an overall light direction for shadow?
Depends where the sun is and where it's coming from. So in this photo, this is a bit of a giveaway here. You can see the sun is overhead.
Yeah.
Get these stripes coming down. So you can see the shutter here has got, there's no shadow here, but there is here. So when I come to add shadows, that they'll all be on to the left. So I put some black on the blackboard because in an ideal world, I'd have time to write the menu, but I'm going to go, remember that our first mix for our wisteria color, I need some more of that now, but I need it to be much more intense. And you could potentially also use some purple. It depends what purple you've got in your palette. But this now needs to go on these beautiful flowers. I'm using a little rigger. You could also use an old, what I would call a scruffy brush to put these very irregular patterns onto the paper, because you don't want them to be too formulaic. See, just putting these dots, letting that initial wash through show through. You will find that you start to get the effect of the flowers with the, because they're very multicolored, aren't they, when you look at them close up. Can you see where I'm going with this, John?
I can.
So the dots are helping to give that cascading feel of the flowers hanging down. So the white, or the whiter color of the paper, is always going to be kind of at the top of the flower, the bunch, the flower head. Because that's where the sun is shining. And we're not going to have time, I don't think, to do the shadows. I think we're going to run out of time for those. but they are.
Might you be able to do the shadows at the top of the building?
Up here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could do some speedy shadows.
Because it is, the shadow is the thing that brings the depth, isn't it?
It is.
The three-dimensional.
It is. So with watercolor, you know, you're layering, and at the moment we haven't got that magic bit where you get the three-dimensional with the shadows. Because here, for example, in this doorway, it's too flat.
Yeah, I mean, you could even just do the doorway, maybe, because that's quite a. So maybe just
okay. So
a
little section. So my go-to shadow color is quite often, if you've sketched with me before, you'll probably know this. I mix together my violet with some burnt sienna and some ultramarine blue, and it gives me this beautiful warm grey. And the brush I'm using, I love this brush. It's a striper brush, and it holds an enormous amount of paint because it's got a very big body on it. So I'm just going to do this door just to show you how much that changes things once you get the shadows. And the shadows have to go right underneath all the leaves and the flowers. Can't have any bizarre white marks underneath those. It has to be shadow only because the sun is not reaching that part of the wall. See how different that looks now?
It makes such a huge difference, doesn't it, when you've got that?
Yeah.
The sense of depth.
So that's that. And, you know, I haven't finished this wall, but you could do that. It goes underneath, behind there, some in there. And then that will really carry that, you know, you carry that on behind some of these groups of leaves and flowers.
It's mesmerizing and very therapeutic to watch you, Annette.
I don't think I've ever painted quite this fast.
It's good, isn't it? This speed paint challenge.
Goodness me, right.
You've done a fantastic job. Right, I'm going to round things up. Thank you so much. If you've got any words of thanks that you'd like me to read through to Annette, please do write that in the Q&A below now, and I'll read that over to her in a minute. It was a lovely, lovely day, and we'd love to see your paintings. And I shared on the chat our Facebook link, but if you can't click that, or you want to do it on your phone, simply visit our Facebook page, Shopkeep Arty, and on there you'll see the post for this class. Literally open the comment, take a photo of your painting when you've finished, and any comments or feedback that you'd like to give, and Annette will have a look at that later as well and give you a little bit of feedback maybe. It's just really nice to see what other people have done. Everybody has a different take as well. It always fascinates me how different everybody's paintings with the same reference. Everything looks so unique. Right, Annette, thank you so much for today. It was really, really lovely. Thank you so much for your time and everything. Victoria said, absolutely beautiful and really captures the essence of a hot, sunny day in southern France. Thank you, Annette. And Carl said, thanks, Annette. I love how your brush dances along the paper. Tonight, I will sketch old doors and paint them in various wine shades while drinking a bit of red. I think that I can't think of anything better than that. Catherine said, really enjoyed it, just watched, but we'll give it a go later. Peter Harris said, marveleux. Thank you. You should have finished that with merci there, Peter. Anyway, and Rosemarie Pilcher said, wonderful. I feel more prepared for future outdoor painting venues. Many thanks. Trisha said, wonderful. Does she have a list of her palette colors? Well, I will be going through the palette colors and all the different pans and everything like that in the workshop. So if you want to, we'll cover everything in the workshop. So, and we might even do some demos on some rough pieces of paper to show different paint brush techniques as well. Anne said, thanks, Annette. Amazing, inspirational. Angela said, thank you so much. So inspiring. Elizabeth said, thanks, Annette. Lovely painting. Love all the colors. Like your shadow color. Learnt a lot. Shelley said, absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. Carol said, amazing experience to actually watch you paint. A great joy. Stefan said, lovely to be working in one of your classes again. Jessica said, thanks so much, Annette. Very inspiring. And Latha said, lovely. Such a beautiful scene. That was great. So some really lovely feedback. Oh, and Louise, I know Louise is in Israel. She said, very beautiful. What sketchbooks do you use? I think she did ask that question earlier, and then it got slipped up the page. Do you have any particular brands that you recommend on the sketchbook scene?
Well, this is a big topic, actually. I'll try and be quick. If you're into watercolor like this, you have to really have 300 GSM paper. Most sketchbooks that you buy tend to have slightly less. Having said that, if you buy a book that's got 200 and 220 GSM paper and it's 100% cotton, you'll get away with it. And there are some on the market that you can buy. Etcher Lab makes a book with 100% cotton paper. Fabriano make a book which is 50% cotton paper, 300 GSM. But that's hot press, and I'm using cold press because it's got a bit of grain. The hot press books, your watercolor kind of tends to slide off. It's not really this kind of painting. It's good with ink and watercolor, but the hot press is very shiny. It's like it has been ironed, literally. This book I'm using is I think it's a Clairefontaine, which is a French make, and it is 100% cotton, and it is 300 GSM, so it's pretty thick paper. And I think there's another one made in the UK by Artway Studio, which is the same. But for day-to-day sketching, honestly, the one I use is just from it's the Canson make. I haven't got one next to me here. It's a Canson make. It's not cotton paper, but it's 300 GSM and it's perfectly adequate. I think the secret is to have the quality of paper weight that you need for how much water you tend to use as an artist. I use quite a lot of washes. Some people don't. They just do a lot of line drawing and then fill in bits of colour.
I think that was a very comprehensive answer, and Louise, I think you opened a big can of worms there with that question. With any other questions that you've got on sketchbooks, let's cover that in a workshop. I think
yes.
Could be that could be a whole topic for an entire.
It is
class,
a really big topic.
So hope you enjoyed it. I know you did. Looking forward to the longer workshop. If you are taking Barry Herneman's art series this month, we're painting St. Paul's, and that'll be starting in 25 minutes without a sketch. I don't know how we're going to do that. It's kind of urban sketching, but without the sketch. And Karen said, never painted so fast with Annette. So that is great. Tell me your stories on Facebook. That'd be fantastic. And of course, Sharon, we always end on the painting as well. So goodbye from me until next time. But obviously, thank you so much to Annette. Thank you, Annette, for sharing your time.
Pleasure.
Today.
Thank you, everybody.
And you obviously get a big round of applause. And we'll finish on your painting.